Britain has failed. Our once great empire is dead. We have a group of incompetent leaders that are driving this country into the ground. And unless we do something about it now, we will be left in the dust.
Not good.
So, how does this tie into business? The way I see it is that countries are very, very similar to businesses. And for me, the business of the UK is failing. Overheads are through the roof. The amount of income is at rock bottom, and it doesn't take a genius to work out that spending too much money and not bringing enough in is only going to lead to disaster. So, Cody, please help me out. What are we going to do to save this country?
Yeah, Tyler, I'm going to tell you exactly how. We're going to save the out of Britain right now. And the first and the most important thing that's got to happen is you've got to get rid of flipping two-tier Kia, because he's just on a suicide mission for himself, that man is. I don't know what is going on. He's turned the prisons into like a playground, releasing God knows who and putting in people for social media posts. You know, he's taking the money away from pensioners. He's angering Elon Musk, which is enough to, you know, really piss anyone off. So, you know, I mean, you tell me. I mean, I'll be changing far too much at this stage.
I mean, he's gone back on every single word that he promised in his manifesto. We won't increase taxes. We'll help the less fortunate. And he's done the complete opposite of that. And this is a recurring problem that we're finding ourselves with now in Britain, where politicians and the government are continually lying and continually giving us false promises about what they're going to do. And for me now, I think it's going to take somebody to come into this country who is just going to give it to us straight. And I think the people now are tired and bored of hearing this, with the same politicians coming in talking about how they're going to save money, cut taxes, cut costs, when nobody's actually talking about the most important factor, which is making money. Nobody I've ever seen in the last 10, 15 years of this country's administration has ever once said, well, this is how we're going to make a few quid. Everyone is so dead set on cutting taxes and making cuts, cutbacks. No one's actually thinking of or coming up with any ideas to increase the revenue or increase the income, whether that's from energy supplies, whether it's from reinvigorating old industries or helping small businesses to succeed. We are doing the complete opposite. The Labour government and even the Conservative government to an extent has just been slowly but surely destroying small businesses, destroying the people's will and their actual morale towards doing anything, because it just seems so futile at the minute.
I mean, one of the easiest ways, and there's a direct correlation on, you know, how low the prices of electricity and energy to the GDP growth. If you've got extremely high access to energy and the cost of the energy is low, the chances are, or the correlation is, that your GDP growth is going to be massively increased. Now, just off the North Sea, we've got oil fields galore. And again, if it was me in power, I'd be saying, you know what? We need to just stop importing oil and drill it off our own coast to save money, invigorate industries, like you're saying, like steel works that are closing down because they're pushing, you know, green energy agenda on them. And then we can start to look at the manufacturing side of things again and own our own energy rather than being beholden to these other countries.
Everything's just been outsourced. You know, we're partly to blame.
I was going to say, yeah.
Now,
damn them.
Our business, obviously, you know, we do export from China, but that's because our government and our country is our industry within the UK is dead, because it's been killed. It's been completely wiped out because we haven't been able to rejuvenate it, because we haven't encouraged young people to actually go into the industries where the UK manufacturing sector used to be one of the leaders in the entire world. And certainly where we were based and where our dad and his dad before him created a legacy in manufacturing and engineering, where there was so much opportunity for them to go into that field and see and find so much success for themselves and make their own success from nothing. Whereas now, that mindset has been so tainted and warped. Compare it to the USA. They've got such a great mindset where it's the land of the free, home of the brave, the best country in the world, the American dream. It's no surprise that countries like the USA now have found so much success when embedded into their core and their ideology and their culture of a country is the land of opportunity and the American dream. Because whether it's true or not, or whether that whole mindset is nothing but a placebo, the fact it's there holds so much value because it encourages people to try. And I use that word hope. Hope is so important in any country or within a group of any people. You've got to have hope that you can succeed. Whereas in the UK, we just see this steady decline because hope has been all but obliterated through poor leadership, poor management, and poor treatment of people who are trying to do the right thing and trying to find success. And they're just being absolutely bodied by the government in taxes, in increased cost of living, increased energy. And they could do something about it, but they won't. And trust me, I can tell you why.
Well, please do. That's been leading right onto it.
I mean, I don't really know where to start with it, but anybody that doesn't know should think about society in this way. It's split into 3 different categories. You've got the wealthy, you've got the poor, and you've got the government. Now, the government's responsibility is to extract 2 different things from each of these parties. You've got money from the wealthy, and you've got votes from the poor. There are more poor people than there are wealthy. And I mean super wealthy, the ones that own the big companies, the ones that own the big corporations, the super, super rich. And the government will try to incentivize the poorer people by offering free money, lower taxes, increased benefits, free healthcare, to then incentivize them to get their vote. But meanwhile, they are literally just puppets for the super rich and these big corporations because they are paying the government to incentivize them to do their bidding for them. Now, in a roundabout way of explaining this, it's really quite simple. You've got the lower class of people who are paying for all of their goods and services to larger companies and corporations, which is making the super rich more rich. So it creates this loop where those less fortunate can only afford now to spend their money with companies that are bolstering the super rich and making them richer. Now, the people that are in the middle, which we would class as middle class, which are on the poorer end of that rich scale, they're the ones that are being taxed and they're being shafted the most because they can't get away from the taxes that the government are bestowing on them, because they're not rich enough to be able to start using like offshore accounts and start using fancy accountants to try and tax plan, tax avoid rather than evade. And so they're the ones paying all the tax for everybody within the country. They can't tax the super rich because all their money is tied up in assets and in companies which are housed in the Cayman Islands. So the super rich can't be taxed. And they're the ones giving the money to the government to pay for things. And so they're then telling the government what they want. So, for example, with immigration, if they are incentivizing new low-skilled immigrants to come and work in the country, to join the businesses that they own for less money, that's going to benefit the
rich.
And by all accounts, it's going to inflate the population. It's going to increase the cost of living because there's now more people to feed, more people to house, more infrastructure. Who's building the infrastructure?
The rich.
Who's feeding the poorer people? Who's feeding everyone?
Yeah, the rich.
These big businesses. So it all leads back in this strange loop because these rich companies and these people that own them are laughing all the way to the bank because at the end of the chain lies them and their businesses. And people nowadays are forced, because of the monopolization of everything, to spend their money with these large companies. They can't be taxed because they're housed in other countries. And they're pretty much now the ones that are leading the countries that they're in. because the countries that they're in have got no other choice but to listen to what they say and do as they're told, because otherwise they'll take their billions of dollars and pounds elsewhere and start feeding another country.
Well, this is it. There's a sort of saying, isn't there? He who holds the money holds the power. And, it's completely true. And you only have to look at the people that hold the money, and lo and behold, they've got the power, haven't they? So I think this is why, and kind of leading on to it a little bit, people like the Nigel Farage have gained so much popularity because they've highlighted a lot of this stuff to people in as best a way they can within certain areas. And people go, you know what? Yeah, like this all makes sense. And, they don't like some of the things that get done with illegal immigration and immigration in general, with the numbers being too high and the state of the NHS not being able to get appointments, and schools being too full, and classrooms just getting worse and worse. So it's when someone comes and talks sense and says that, at the end of the day, like, this is ridiculous, they're going to get a lot of popularity.
The veil is slowly being lifted. And the more that people talk about this, like us, with how society really works, the better it's going to be for the mass population, because we're the ones that are really holding the brunt of all of the issues whilst the rich get richer. And that's always been true throughout time. And like you said, he who holds the money holds the power. Look at history. The barons of this country used to pretty much rule the country, and the king was kind of beholden to the barons because they were the ones with the money, they were the ones with the armies. And so if the king wanted to stay in power, he had to keep the barons happy, even though he was the king. So it's almost similar today, except instead of the king and the barons, it's kind of like the prime minister and the companies that are within the country.
Yeah.
And they have to listen to pretty much what these companies want and what benefits them.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I love the UK. Like, I've been to Scotland, been to Wales, been to, loads of places in England. And it's just so disheartening sometimes when you see what's going on in some areas. Now, without being too doom and gloom, the good thing that I see is when I've spoke to, like, the younger generation, they definitely seem to get it a lot more than, say, our generation. They're like a lot more, they have a more entrepreneurial spirit. And I don't know if it's social media gets a bad rap, but when you do follow the right people, it creates massive opportunity. And, we're seeing it in America now with Donald Trump getting in, and we've kind of got our Donald with it being Nigel Farage to a degree. And I think the whole world's moving forward to, instead of being the victim all the time, it's about putting the work in and working more to a meritocracy.
I think we've taken a big step forward and 5 massive steps backwards. And I think we've had this new agenda, this new woke mindset where, look, everybody wants to get along. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody wants to like and cherish each other's opinions. But the reality is we've gone one step too far. And I feel like we need to go back to some more of these traditional values that we used to hold as a country, where it used to be, I'm not saying go back to this sort of, men are the leaders of the house, women don't have a say, they need to stay at home and sit behind a stove. That's ridiculous. I'm not saying that. But I think some of the traditional values such as respect and discipline, they've completely gone out the window. Because
chivalry as well.
Yeah, politeness, chivalry. People are saying chivalry's dead now and that the, old school gentleman doesn't exist anymore. That's because respect and discipline's gone. Kids I see nowadays, they're running the household, because back in the day for us, I mean, if we acted out of line, I'm sure he won't mind us saying we had a 3-strike rule. Strike 1 and 2 if you misbehave and you don't listen to, stop and stop it now. You got a smack round the head. And look, again, I wouldn't advise that for everybody. But I think that level of discipline to make people realise that actually you're stepping a foot in the wrong direction here, you need to course correct quite harshly with a smack around the head. It does make people have that discipline and that respect. And it's gone in schools now. Kids can do what they want. Teachers aren't allowed to say anything. It's gone in the homes because parents aren't allowed to say anything. Otherwise, they'll be sort of sent to, the parent jail. Police can't say anything anymore because they're the ones now with everybody's got a smartphone and disrespecting the police left, right and centre. Whereas before you'd get a bat onto the head and thrown in jail. Can't do that anymore. So you've got a lawless society where everyone can run around, do what they want, say what they want without any repercussions for their actions. And it's just creating this chaos because no one's got any respect for each other anymore.
We were really lucky because, again, you touched on, dad and having that father figure as someone who's, when you've done something wrong, discipline. And again, the mother figure that we've had as well was equally as important to counterbalance, the harsh click around the ear. It's nice to then have someone you're going to go to and be like, oh, dad's been a dick. And mum's, the nice stabilizing force within the household. So I think it's the fact that parents aren't together, and it can mentally affect the children quite a lot in a negative way. But especially if it's not the father in the household, the discipline isn't there, and then it just follows through their entire life into school, into later life, and eventually you get that clip round the ear, and then you probably wake up. But it takes that clip round the ear.
It does for some people, and whether it's a metaphorical smack round the head or an actual one, some people get to adolescence and they get to 16, 17, 18, and they've never been disciplined ever. And they just run around again thinking they're God's gift, doing what they want, when they want, to who they want. And eventually they do it to the wrong person. And eventually reality will give them a slap round the face for them. But even then, that can't be done anymore. It's just... lawlessness has taken over because, again, now, even if you do commit a crime, the government don't want to punish you for sort of committing some of these serious crimes that are out there nowadays. They're too busy punishing people for speaking out against LGBT or too busy punishing people for writing a tweet. Yeah. It's absolutely mental. And all of that is creating this disdain for the country, and the love for the country is completely gone. And you see it everywhere, people littering, people spitting on the floor, people graffitiing everywhere. They're not bothered. They don't care a jot. They're in their cities, and because they don't feel a part of the country, again, a lot of this can be put down to the immigration crisis. Say what you want, but it's true. People that join the country from, third world countries, they're not as bothered. They don't care. They've got no love for the country that they're in. And so they don't think anything of throwing a bit of litter on the floor. Whereas in contrast, I've just been to China. We went to Poland not too long ago, and spotless everywhere. There was not a speck of litter anywhere or graffiti anywhere, because people care about the country. They have respect, and they're disciplined enough to not treat their country like a piece of rubbish. And because for us now, it's gone so far downhill where the government don't care, the people don't care, everybody just has lost interest. You can see it happening around you. You can just see lawlessness and chaos of people just shrugging their shoulders, and everybody wants to leave and move to Dubai and move to Australia and move away. I don't know anybody that I've spoke to in the last 5 years that has said, do you know what? I can't wait to spend the rest of my life in the UK. It's brilliant. It's absolutely great here. I don't know anybody. And so I think the biggest change for me needs to be a cultural one, where I would hope someone like Prince William comes along and hopefully takes the kingship. And look, I'm not a royalist, but a culture needs to be changed to be adopted similar to that of the USA, where it's the land of opportunity, home of the brave, land of the free, American dream, all of that sort of stuff needs to be adopted by us again. Because as I said, we were once the most powerful empire on planet Earth. And now we can barely look after... Now we can barely look after our own homes.
But this is it again now likening it to businesses, with a country, America have done it perfectly, like we're saying, with the marketing that you can make it if you are in America and you work hard. In the UK, it's like if you get there, you can get free money. That's essentially our motto at the minute. Make it to the UK, you get a free hotel room and free benefits and free this, free healthcare. And it's just no incentive for anyone to ever come here to work hard. It's just to come here and get something for free.
And who's paying for it all?
Yeah, exactly. The people that work hard.
Us in the middle. And who's benefiting from it?
The rich.
The rich with the companies. And then it all goes back to those same people. They're the ones building the houses. They're the ones paying for everything to be built. They're the ones supplying all the food. They're the ones everybody's buying merchandise off, whether it's Nike's, Adidas shoes, whether it's Amazon, things on Amazon. The only people benefiting are the people at the top, and the problem is only going to continue to get worse. And these rhetorics that the government keeps pushing out about immigration or climate change, it all stems back to whatever these corporations want or need at the time, and that's what they'll funnel into the media to basically put this message out to the lower and to the poorer class of people to basically fight amongst themselves, create chaos, and allow the ones at the top of the mountain to laugh all the way to the bank.
Yeah, because it doesn't affect their neighbourhoods.
Not even close.
They probably don't even live in the UK.
They're in a lovely gated community with armed guards, so nobody's getting into those communities. You know, so like as far as everybody, the poor and the poorer are starting to now live together, and the middle class are starting to, all these impoverished areas are starting to spread out. Places in the UK aren't getting better. When was the last time you heard, a really nice area's just cropped up in the UK? When did you hear that last? It doesn't happen.
I've never heard it.
It's exactly the amount of people saying, blood, it's getting worse. This used to be a lovely area, and now look at it. This used to be beautiful, and now look at it. That's all I hear, because the poor are going to get poorer as the rich get richer. And unfortunately, all that's going to happen is they will continue living in their little bubble, and we're just going to be continuing to. It's like, have you seen the film In Time with Justin Timberlake?
Yeah.
There's like districts.
And
It's going to be like the Hunger Games. We're going to District 12. We're going to be all at arms with each other. And that's the only way that I see things going. So the only thing I would say to everyone is they need to start to notice what's going on in the world. The governments aren't going to save you. Your families aren't going to save you. Your friends aren't going to save you. You need to focus on yourself. You need to find a way to increase your value. So when hits the fan, you're prepared for it, you've got a plan, and you can actually navigate your way around it, and you're not tied into living in squalor, because eventually it will come to your front door and you will end up living in the same filth that you're complaining about.
Tell me about it. And it's gonna, if it gets any worse, it's gonna be like Dunkirk in reverse with people on rubber dinghies, like going back to France, although I don't think that's that much better in all honesty. But I can see at least a light at the end of the tunnel to a degree, because we tend to follow America in waves. And I think we're going through the Joe Biden era now. You know, it weren't great here anyway, but we're definitely going through it now, that's for sure. And that would then lead me to think that maybe, you know, as we keep hearing, we need reform. Hopefully, Uncle Nige is going to come in and save the day at some point. And a lot of people probably don't agree with some of the things that he says, but you can't not look at the man and think he's a leader and he's got a passion and he loves his country and he wants to do right by it.
He wants to put Britain first, which really is what we should all be doing. He wants to bring back the great empire that we once were, and by all accounts, make Britain great again.
Should we get some hats?
Yeah, I don't know where I've heard that one. I think it's a new one.
Yeah,
so
I think that's
must have taken some inspiration from somewhere. But no, we do. We need to make Britain great again. This situation isn't going to get better until a collective action is taken from a majority of the people. We are all responsible for our own situations, but also for the situations of our community that's around us. So, taking what we've talked about today, use it to empower what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, because there is still hope for this country. We're a land of culture, a land of scones and tea and football and sports. And we've got so much to be proud of, not only in our history, but in our future as well. And we are all responsible for the next generations that are coming forward to make the country as great as we possibly can, to allow for that next generation to have the best chance of finding success. And that is exactly why we are doing this podcast. We are trying our best to give back as much knowledge as we have through our lessons going through business, and trying to help as many people as possible find success in their own lives. And we are using this to create a community to allow like-minded people to come together to help each other find success. And only through taking action and doing that are we actually going to make a difference moving forward. There's no use just sitting back, doing nothing and complaining, because the situation won't change until action is taken. So please reach out to us, join our community, and we can't wait to share the success with you as we move forward. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.